Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me just say that we get it. Personal development can be hard, but you don't have to do it alone. Project Endure has been on a mission to create a supportive and inspiring community of people, all striving to be better together. Head down to the link in the show notes and join the Hard Things Club so that we can do hard things together. And if you're already a member, invite a friend and spread the love. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 47. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and we have a very, very special guest in Boston, Cam Ahouse. Cam, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Yeah, it's a beautiful day here in Philadelphia. I'm excited for our conversation. And I figured, before I even have you introduce yourself, we're going to throw a softball out there because you were curious about what kind of questions I ask. So let me go with, what's your favorite color? Let's start there.
All right, I'd say blue. It used to be red when I was growing up. So there was like a transition period where I would debate back and forth, but yeah, blue. And more like a navy blue.
This could get deep. What made you transition from red to blue?
I don't know. I know red was my favorite color because that was my mom's favorite color. And then I just started wearing more blues, and I guess like more grays, blacks, whites, like with outfits, and just started liking blues more.
Awesome. Fair enough. I was a big Red Ranger fan. I was a big Power Ranger kid.
I was Red Ranger for Halloween one year.
Yeah, of course. Well, why don't we do this, Cam? Tell the audience a little bit about you. Start wherever makes sense, and we'll dive in from there.
Yeah. All right. Let's do it. So from Connecticut, played football at a small school in Pennsylvania called Muhlenberg, just north of Philly. I've never been to Philly and really regret never having gone there. And was going to be a math major. And then my friend said, do you want to make money? So switched over to finance. So worked on Wall Street for 7 years. Enjoyed it. Didn't work out how I do now, mainly just like bro splits. So fitness was always a part of my life. How important it was has changed. And then moved to Boston about 5 years ago. Didn't enjoy what I was doing. Found the Boston group fitness community and just like Boston fitness in general, and fell in love with it. Quit my job, unemployed for 6 months. Then started working at A6, the shoe company right across the street from the gym I was going to. I was there for 3 years, was introduced to Roan during that period. And then right now I'm at Roan as their community marketing manager. And so started about a year ago. And the big transition from going from finance out of finance was that not only like did I not love it, but there was no like reward. It was like cool, making people more money, but it wasn't really like tangible. It wasn't fulfilling. I guess fulfilling would be the right word. Haven't looked back since. Really, really happy with what I do now, and really happy with that transition period at A6, and just getting to know like a ton of cool people throughout the process.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've noticed about you is that you place a lot of emphasis on community and connection. Tell me a little bit more about why that's so important to you, and also what that looks like in your life right now.
Yeah. It wasn't a big, like I said, like community wasn't a thing before. But I've always found a lot of joy in bringing people together, and whether I'm involved in their interactions after that doesn't matter. So it could be like a great example is held a workout at Everybody Fights, and Dan Stoddard, who we're both friends with, photographer, first time him and I worked together, and he ended up doing a bunch of shoots with different fitness instructors that were there, right? I wasn't involved in that after, but I was so happy to bring him into that event and then introduce him to the Boston fitness community, and then for them to develop their own relationships. But yeah, it's really fulfilling. And that's, I think, why I gravitated towards it. Right now, it's a big part of my job at Roan, building community throughout the country. And then on a more local level, it's just, getting guys together, whether I'm in LA, whether I'm in Boston, New York, Austin. So trying to travel around a little bit more, but just getting guys together that don't know each other, that I think would click and mesh really well, or guys that kind of know each other just through Instagram, but really trying to bring those meetups in person.
Yeah, I love that. You know what? I know that you are all about being vulnerable. And I think that the conversation we're going to have is going to lend itself really well to that. But before we get to the really deep questions, you wrote in your intake form, so to speak, that it wasn't until you turned 30 that you understood what it really meant to be a man. I'm so curious to hear more about that and what it means to you to be a man, because I've had this conversation with clients, with friends, with other people in my life, and the definition in this conversation can be so wide and expansive. It can go in so many different ways. So when
Yeah.
you say that, what does that mean to you?
I even forgot what I wrote in that intake form. So thanks for bringing it up. I think that I grew up in a household, and it's not to say my dad didn't or doesn't love me. I've lost my mom when I was in high school. And it was more of an environment where it's just rub dirt in it, keep going, you don't cry. And I guess it was around when I turned 30 where I was introduced to these guys down in Austin who started Guy Talk. It's no longer around now, but and seeing them and like how they were open with each other and just listening to them tell their story and really open up. And I didn't look down on them. No one else did. And I was like, this is really cool. This is something that I'm definitely not doing. I put up that wall, that emotional wall immediately. And so being introduced to those guys, seeing those guys do it, sparked something in me where I was like, this is something that I need to do. I have a ton of work to do, trying to get better all the time. But I think just having that conversation and opening up and listen, I think to be a man is pretty much just to be human, is to show your emotions, share what's going on in your head. Obviously you don't want to be disrespectful to people. Showing up for yourself, kind of just showing respect for people, and not being afraid to share what is going on inside of you, I think is what makes a man.
I would agree with that. And my wife and I just bought a house here in Philadelphia. And so we've been unpacking and getting things all set up. And I've been thinking a lot about the concept of inviting people into our home and how that's similar into inviting people into a conversation about what's going on with us. And, if you had a leak in the ceiling and your couch was flipped over and everything was a mess, you probably wouldn't want to invite people into your physical house. And I think a lot of times people feel the same about themselves, right? What's going on in their mind, right? Things might be messy. There might be stuff in there that they don't want other people to see or know about. But I think we have to be willing to invite people into that place, into that conversation, and connect with them there. Because you never know, like maybe one of your friends is a plumber, or maybe one of your friends is like, hey, like I got another buddy, we can come move this couch and get it back in place. So I don't know. Do you feel like ever since you've stepped into maybe a more vulnerable place that your life has changed for the better in tangible ways?
Oh yeah, I mean I wouldn't be with Roan and what I'm doing now if I didn't do that. So that happened in turned 30 in 2018, and then it was 2019 when I was introduced to Guy Talk, and then it was about 6 months later I was introduced to Roan. So yeah, that never would have happened, and mental health is a huge pillar of Roan, and so I think that also helped me get drawn to them and them drawn to me. Yeah, it's really cool to. I think a lot of people may look at me the first time or say Instagram because my shirt's off all the time. I'm terrified to put stuff up a lot of the time. I'm usually not that comfortable having my shirt off as much as it may seem. And I think when I meet people and then typically work out with them, like they realize that I don't give a shit how they're doing as long as they're trying. I want to make sure I'm trying. And I hope that people just realize that no matter how you look, it really is just how you show up. And I think that's what the most important thing is.
Yeah. Honestly, I was surprised you were wearing a shirt when you hopped on Zoom tonight.
I
But
thought about that. And I was like, we're probably talking right before it, but maybe in case not, let me just have this on.
no, we're not using the video, but for the record, Cam is wearing a shirt.
Okay.
So let's do this. I want to jump in with the first real question here, which is a deep one. But what is the hardest thing or circumstance that you've ever had to handle in life? In other words, something that you didn't have a say in.
Wow. It's funny that you brought that up because maybe we'll end up talking about it, but I do these things called mind and muscle at rounds. So it ends up being like part like movement, could be like a hard workout, could be breathing, and then a mental health discussion, but it's all just men. Just to help create that safe space. And I was listing out questions today. Anyway, that was the one that came up was what situation that you've had to go through and the hardest and why. Without a doubt, might be too far, but losing my mom for sure. Had no say in that. She was diagnosed in June, breast cancer, and then passed in December. So I was 15. That really sucked. There's no way to be like sugarcoat it. And then having to show up and be there for my sister, which I was not great at. So there's a 7-year difference between us. And yeah, it was hard to try to play the role of a parent and a brother and a friend. Didn't do any of them well. So now her and I are much closer, and I think things are on the right path. But that was definitely the most difficult situation, was to try to navigate life without my mom.
And I'm sorry for your loss. I know that was, I'm trying to do the math in my head, 19 years ago now.
Yeah, December 2019.
Wow. And so 6 months between the time she was diagnosed and the time that she passed. As a 15-year-old, so your sister was 8 at the time?
Yep.
Wow. So when did you start to realize, looking back, that maybe you could have handled the situation differently? And like, what would that have even looked like as a 15-year-old going through all of that? Because I imagine that any 15-year-old would struggle with that.
Yeah. And it's not to give myself any excuses. I don't know, man. You just like, to be honest, there's like, there are large gaps during those years of high school where I just don't remember anything. I'll have friends tell me things that happened and I have no recollection of it. And it's definitely, my brain is just blocking stuff out. So I'll give myself some grace during high school. I would say it was probably after college when I moved to New York and just didn't make as much of an effort to call or to visit home in Connecticut as much as I should have. So yeah, I definitely just like, as soon as I got a job, just left, and kind of, I can be very much of a out of sight, out of mind person. And that's something I'm really trying to work on. But if I could go back, that's something that I would do, just call her more, tell her I love her, tell her I'm there, listen to her. Which I feel like usually as a guy, it's really hard just to listen and not want to give solutions. Her and I just had a conversation about this, and I was like, do you want help or do you not? And she's like, no, I don't. I just want to vent. But yeah, that's what I would do. I mean, it's not that I can't really change. Even if I were to go back, it's not like I could change the outcome of what happened to my mom. But I think just being there for my sister as a brother and not trying to take on that parent role is something I would go back and change.
I want to touch on 2 things. We'll go the less serious route first. In premarital counseling, my wife and I were shown this video of this couple sitting on a couch. And I think it's a pretty popular video, maybe within certain circles, but I would imagine most people have not seen this. And it's a couple talking on a couch. It's a man and a woman, and the woman is complaining. She's like, my head is just pounding. Have you seen this, Cam? Yeah.
It's so funny.
And she's going on and on about all these complaints, and you only see the bottom parts of their faces. And the guy is like, well, I actually think I know what's going on. And he keeps interrupting. And she goes, no, you don't know what's going on. And the camera zooms out and she has a nail in her forehead. And no matter how many times he tries to tell her, all she needs is someone to listen.
Yeah.
And I think, like you, that's a lesson that I've learned and still am learning and getting better at over time. And I think the question that you even alluded to is like, do you want advice or do you want an answer or do you just need to vent, is a super, super important one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My friend Laura, she's the one that said that. She's like, ask the question, do you want help or do you just want to vent? And that helps put you in a position where you're either going to start thinking of what to say, or it's just you're there and you're just going to sit back and listen. So it was very confusing with my sister because she kept asking these questions, but then didn't want help. But anyway, that's why I tried to like make it clear: do you want help or do you not? I try to do that just with other friends in life. So.
Yeah. And I think that's a good takeaway for anybody listening, is sometimes just a simple question, clarifying how you could best help the person on the other end of that interaction. It might even seem silly or too simple, but oftentimes it positions us in a really powerful way to best support and encourage somebody else. So that's one thing. So the more serious question is, obviously you look back and I would imagine that the thing you would want most is to have your mom back, but obviously that can't happen. When you look back at the past 19 years, is there any good that has come from such a hard, objectively bad situation? Or have you not found maybe any dots that have connected that you realize, well, maybe this was meant to happen this way? Do you even believe that things happen like that? I mean, what's your view on all of that?
I'm sure there's good that's come from it. I think the only thing that I noticed was that I become I can be very independent. However, and my girlfriend will say otherwise, is that I do tend to latch on to who I'm with, either both faster and kind of more, I don't know what the right word is.
Like with strong. Yeah.
Yeah. Than maybe I would if she was alive. But no, I've never actually like looked back and thought and been like, oh, well, at least this thing happened, or this good thing happened. A lot of it is definitely more on like the negative side. I'm sure there are good things that have happened. I think I can be pretty independent, but again, once I find like someone that I want to be with, then I can kind of latch on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough question. Obviously doesn't have a right answer, but big picture view, are you in the school that believes that everything happens for a reason? Or are you maybe more in the space where things are just random and can't make sense of it?
Oh, I would definitely lean more towards everything happens for a reason. Yeah, I don't think it's, some things can be random, but I think there is like a general direction that we all are individually going towards, our own path. Yeah, I do like the, and this wasn't, Tom Brady didn't say this, but it was one of the what is his TV show that is on?
Oh, he's got a TV show now?
Disney. It's like the 10 episodes. Why am I blanking on it?
Oh, The Man in the Arena.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But it was basically like this story, and where it's like, oh, this horse like runs away, and the guy's like, is it bad? And he's like, maybe. Horse comes back with like a bunch of horses. It's like, oh, this is great, isn't it good? He's like, maybe. And then son gets kicked, breaks his arm. Is that bad? Maybe. Army comes recruiting people. Son can't go because he's broken arm. So, yeah, I try to remind myself of that. I'd heard it before. It's just I most recently heard it on that show. But yeah, I think that we all have like a general direction that we're going, and shit happens. But usually it'll work out.
Yeah, I think the beauty of that story is that we can't place events in this moment in time in the bigger picture of our lives because the rest of it hasn't happened yet. And we don't know how this piece today fits in with everything else yet to come. And so one of my favorite quotes is by Christine Kane. And she said, sometimes when you're in a dark place, you think you've been buried, but you've actually been planted. And I think that image of just, you can be surrounded by darkness, but have this hope or this faith or this trust that maybe, just maybe, I've been planted and I'm not buried. And I think that ties in really well to the concept of endurance, which we'll get to later. But yeah, any last thoughts on that before I kind of hit you with another question?
No. Let's hear it.
All right, cool. So we talked about the hardest thing that you've had to handle, something that you didn't get to choose. But what is the hardest thing that you've ever done on purpose, and why have you done that thing?
Huh. I'm gonna guess you're asking for something more mental than physical.
You can give me one of each, whatever comes to mind.
I guess I mean it's nothing. It's not crazy. Ran a marathon, but the thing is, I didn't train a month before it because I kind of injured my foot, so I was just hitting the assault bike a lot. I couldn't even row because of it. So like mile 17 or 18, my didn't snap, but I strained my tendon so bad that even to today I can still feel it. I run a lot, so that was bad. That was like every mile, tears. Every mile I had to stop because I couldn't walk. Otherwise, my leg would just give out. So I'd like run and keep the momentum, or just collapse. Mentally, I think two things. One is social media. I mean, people are just so mean and hide behind the keyboard. So that can really suck. I think there's way more good that comes from it than negative. But I would say something that's been really difficult is just for me to come out and talk to you, or doing the mind and muscle, the mental health chats, and opening up and sharing and, trying to put aside the fear that I'm going to get judged. And, yeah, I mean, it's super tough to do. It's really scary to do. So yeah, I mean, put me in a workout and I may be nervous, but I'm going to love it. Put me in a room and I have to talk to guys. That's terrifying. And I think it's going to go terrible every time. And I even say that, but it ends up working out. I kind of like face that fear and know that, at least one other guy in this room is feeling the same way.
Yeah. So I got two things. One is a quote by Alexis Carrel, who once said, "Man cannot remake himself without suffering, for he is both the marble and the sculptor." And just want to say to you that the hard things that you're doing, even showing up here on this podcast, which I didn't realize, well, we're already too far into it to turn back now. That is, you sculpting yourself into the person that you want to become. And that's not comfortable, but growth isn't comfortable. And then I think the other thing to mention, and we can talk about this too, is for you, fitness, yeah, it's challenging. It's hard, but compared to somebody else, like it's really not that hard, right? And hard is relative, because for someone else getting on a podcast, for me, I don't mind, right? I really enjoy this. I was super excited, not nervous at all. This is not uncomfortable. But for somebody else, this, like yourself, this might be tough. So let's start with the fitness hard is relative aspect, because you touched earlier on the fact that you care about effort and you care about people trying. And so when you're in the fitness setting and other people are there and they're giving their best effort and you can tell that it's hard for them, is there any specific encouragement that you like to give to people in the gym when it comes to fitness? Do you have phrases? Do you have sayings? Are you like a high five kind of guy? What's that look like?
So I used to teach for 3 years. I tell myself that I was terrible. I feel like I could program well, but I'm not a rah person. I don't have all those sayings. What I used to do is I would walk around and I would challenge, I love doing challenges. I would challenge people, maybe lift heavier, maybe do, progress the movement so it's a little more challenging. And then to see them do it, I'm like, hell yeah, dude, like, or whoever it is, like that, I love that. But since I have been teaching for a year And even before, if I'm in a class, like I just try to joke around a lot, make small talk, or I'll just walk over and if I don't know the person, can I swear on this podcast?
Oh yeah, go. Everybody asked that, but yeah, of course. Go ahead.
That's earlier. Anyway, I'll usually walk over and be like, "Fuck yeah, way to go!" Like, and I'll get all hyped up. I'll probably get more hyped up than like what I'm doing, because I really care and really want people to try. I don't care if we're doing 1,000-meter row and I row in 3:30 and they row in 7 minutes, as long as they tried. I don't give a shit. And working out can be super intimidating. It can be intimidating whether you're going to bar the first time or you're going to CrossFit. I get nervous every time I go into a new gym. And then it kind of, clicks pretty quick and then I can go. But yeah, I just try. Who cares? It doesn't matter. You're probably not going to be the best. No one here is going to be the best at whatever we're doing. So effort just means a ton to me. So
Yeah, I love praising effort. I love the concept of effort because it's one of really the only things that we can control. The outcome most times, if not all times, is just not completely within our control, but how we show up, the attitude that we adopt, the effort that we give, the choices we make, those are all within our control. And one of the things that I love most about fitness, and I'm not sure if you feel the same way or not, is when I got into it, it was purely physical. I wanted to look good. I wanted to feel strong. I wanted to be in the gym for those reasons. But as I got further and further into it, I realized that I was getting such a mental benefit. I was becoming a better person because every time I got in the gym, I could push myself. I could get stronger because of it. I can find my limits. I could test those things. And I just built this confidence that I don't think I could have had without fitness, to be honest. Do you feel like that's been a similar thing in your life?
I did it for the aesthetics in New York, and I would just do upper body. Didn't even know what lower body was. In college we had to lift. In Boston, finding the group fitness, and the gym is everybody fights. My body changed a lot. And just in short, just got a lot leaner, but I never thought of that actually as being like a goal. I just enjoyed being around the people that I was with so much and doing the classes and challenging myself that then that was just a byproduct of it. And I'd say that I still do that now. And I still try to pick something where I'm like working towards it. Right now I'm not, I want to do like a CrossFit comp, but, yeah, it usually ends up being a byproduct. But I will say it does give you a ton of confidence. When you do end up like, you may look a little better, feel better, look good, feel good, play good, right? So yeah, I think maybe a little different, but it definitely has changed. It definitely has pushed me and it definitely forced me to come out of my shell a little bit when I would start working out with people, and then having to talk to them and then starting to encourage them and realizing this is something where I feel really comfortable and maybe they don't. So let's try to make them comfortable.
Yeah. And I think the concept of making other people comfortable and encouraging them, whether it's in fitness or any other area of life, is a really, really cool one because I think sometimes we just need to borrow belief from other people. We just need someone else to believe a little bit in us more than we believe in ourselves to challenge us, to encourage us, to say like, hey, you can do a little bit more. Like, I'm here with you. I'm going to cheer you on. Like, I know you can do it. And then they do it and they realize, oh, wow, I can do that. I do feel strong. I do feel good. I do feel confident. And I can very clearly see that you do that in fitness and in other areas of your life. But let me shift gears to the social media side of things, because I think that's a really interesting conversation. So I told you before we hopped on here, I was like, your social media has blown up in the past couple of weeks. And you're like, yeah, just got lucky. And then I said, no, I think you've been putting in some hard work. And you have. But what I don't see, and what I think a lot of people don't see, is how social media makes the creator feel, right? There's pressure that comes with that. There's feedback that you may like and you may not like. There's so much behind the scenes. So tell us about your relationship, I guess we'll go with social media.
Yeah. All right. I was probably one of the first couple of years to get Facebook. Back when you needed a college email address. Never posted on Facebook. Um, then I didn't get Instagram till almost 2019, and that was just a way for me to like promote classes I was starting to teach. And then I started seeing challenges. Anyway, yes, I feel like I've been very consistent the last 6 months. Um, but I don't know. It's just like, yeah, social media can be like, some days it is the best thing. It allows me to connect to people. It's how you and I got connected, um, and meet so many cool, interesting, amazing individuals. And on the flip side, there are times when like it'll make me, I mean, listen, I mean, I'll have like body images because of it. I'll look in the mirror and I'll be like, what the fuck? Like, really down on myself. Especially TikTok. TikTok is pretty ruthless. At least with Instagram, usually they know you or you know them some level. But yeah, I think like I would say that social media has had a very big impact on me mentally, but mainly because of how I look physically and how I am constantly worried that if I don't look a certain way, then the audience will not respond positively. I know that's probably stupid, but that's just what it is. And it's not, I don't eat a certain way. I try not to eat processed foods. I try not to drink a ton. And because I just feel better. But, maybe I'll go on like a vacation and I'll come back and I feel like, shit, I'm bloated, not as lean. Like, I don't want to do a workout with my shirt off. No one's going to care. But, my girlfriend will hear that and I'll have that conversation. So I'd say that is how it has affected me the most.
Man, so I'm going to tell a quick story and then we'll keep going with this. But a few episodes back, I had on a good friend and mentor, Chris Flores. I worked at his sports performance business when I was a junior and senior in college. Flow Fitness was the business. So he encouraged me to create an Instagram account. I created Joe Flow Fit. Had no idea what I was doing, very directionless, very inconsistent. But as it started to pick up steam, it was very much fitness, physical therapy related content. And a few years back, maybe let's say 2 or 3, I started kind of getting this desire to maybe post more of just who I was outside of those things. Because to me, yes, the title of being a doctor of physical therapy was something that I pursued on purpose, but it wasn't because that was who I was. It was just a title I had. So long story short, I went from posting this very educational content, graphics, text on the screen, some videos explaining exercise. And then I'd post a picture of my face, like just a close up with like a heartfelt caption, and I'd lose like 30 followers and gut punch. And then I'd go back to the regular content that people were following me for. And then a couple months later, I'd put up another, picture of my face, headshot, this is who I am, lose 30 followers. And man, it just was such a big hit to me. And it wasn't until I made the full transition where I was like, you know what? Yes, I love fitness. I love physical therapy, but I don't want this to be a place where I educate people. I want to share my life experience. That's what I want to do. Once I fully made that shift, it was like all the people who weren't following me for who I was and what I was up to, they left. And then a whole new wave of people who actually cared and wanted to connect and wanted to encourage me followed along. And I'm only speaking for Instagram because that's my experience. I understand TikTok's different, and TikTok is a whole nother conversation we could have. But I think what my experience was once I made that full transition to just being who I was, I just felt a lot more comfortable. Now, the body image side of things, I can 100% relate to you on that. And honestly, I think a lot more people than would be willing to express this also agree and can relate to that. And when you're putting yourself out there and you're getting feedback where somebody's saying something potentially negative about how you look or what you're doing, I mean, that's a big hit to the ego. And so how do you continue to show up despite that, Cam? Because obviously it's hard.
Yeah. A lot of talks with my girlfriend. A lot of talks with the man in the mirror. No, it's just like I got a couple messages today, and just people are just really supportive, and hey, like really appreciate this movement or this workout, and it's stuff like that that just like that keeps me wanting to do it. Um, so the pros definitely outweigh the cons, and I just have to remind myself of that. I also have to remind myself that the people that I interact with and that I'm texting are the people that actually matter.
Yeah.
If I can make an impact on someone's life through social media, amazing. If I can't do that in person, then I'm failing. Um, so yeah, it's tough. Some days I feel awesome, and other days I just feel like shit. But I feel like everyone goes through that at different levels. But yeah.
That's super honest. And I agree with you. I think everybody goes through that on different levels. I'll be super vulnerable here for a sec. You know, I journal every morning. Every morning I wake up, it's part of my routine. I feel great after I get my thoughts down on paper. And every once in a while, when I'm having an especially tough day, I'll journal kind of mid morning or middle of the day, just if I feel like I need it. And there was this day a couple weeks back where I was just having a day. I mean, there's no other way to say it. And I was looking back at my journal earlier today, and I wrote something to the effect of, "I just want to curl up in a ball on the couch and cry for the rest of this day." And I remember it. Like, I did not want to show up for my clients. I did not want to show up for anybody else. I just wanted to curl up into a ball and just be by myself for the rest of the day and just cry. And that's the stuff that people don't share on social media. And people look at people like you and I, and they see this content and this cool thing that they're doing and this business or whatever it is. And they just automatically assume in their mind that everything is always good. And I think that can make people feel really, really bad about themselves. But the truth is, life is hard. Nobody gets to escape that. And I think it's all about how we respond to those situations. I think talking about it is incredibly helpful, whether it's talking through journaling, talking with a loved one, talking out loud like this on a conversation that other people will hear. And I've just gotten to the point where, if people can't accept who I am or don't want to be around me because of who I am, then those people don't matter. And the people who do matter, they'll be in my circle no matter what. So I'm curious your thoughts on that, the
About
circle stuff.
Oh yeah, I have a pretty small circle. Yeah, it's funny. My girlfriend, she's the complete opposite, right? She's the one that's like, she's also the person you can put her into a room. She knows no one. She'll walk out like going to their wedding. I'm like, awesome. I can't do that. I have to like,
Well, you're invited as a guest, so it doesn't matter.
yeah. Yeah, the people that matter the most are the people that I keep in touch with the most. Um, and I do make an effort to people that I know I want to stay in touch with, or I know that, or they're just good people, are people that I'll reach out. Maybe it's a comment on their post, maybe it's a message, maybe it's a reaction, maybe it's just a random text. So yeah, I didn't really follow the question, but keeping everything small circle.
Yeah, it wasn't a good question at all. Yeah, no, I was just curious how you view those layers of people in your life, because I also think that it can be easy to get caught up in wanting to please everybody and wanting to respond to everybody, and wanting to interact with so many people in so many different directions that your energy gets diluted. And one of my biggest fears, to be honest, is that someday in the future, I'll look back and realize that I spent so much time trying to be there for everyone that I really was there for no one.
Yeah.
You know?
And I don't know if it's really to go off of that, but I definitely, my girlfriend calls me out if I seem like I'm putting more effort towards the people on the screen than the people in front of me. Um, so I try not to let that happen. Um, but it's like, you get that hit of dopamine when you get likes, and you get comments, as long as they're positive. Um, right. But then you have the person next to you or your friends that are, in the city or, another state anyway. It's those people that you really care about what they think, right? You're going to care more about what they think. However, sometimes in a moment, you may not realize that.
Yeah, it's like the Dan Stoddard, who you and I both know. I talk to Dan maybe once every few months on the phone. And even though we're not necessarily in constant communication outside of those calls, every time we get on the phone, it's like we didn't skip a beat. I feel
Yeah.
super at home. He's one of those people. I got to get Dan on this podcast.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, he's just one of those people. So yeah, I think that that all makes sense in context of our conversation. And just for the sake of time, I'll move on to the next one, which I'm really interested to hear your answer to this, having known now that you ran a marathon, especially while injured. So, what is your definition of the word endurance?
Honestly, I don't even know why I didn't think about this beforehand. uh, endurance. Just for me, the willingness and ability to push through obstacles, whether they're mental or physical. Um, yeah, I think that's what I would say. Because there's like run into these like I don't know. I tend to do more like CrossFit workouts. Physically, I usually know I'm like, okay, I can do this. It's a mental side where it's like, hey, do I want to like get close to passing out or puking, or do I want my lungs feel like they're going to explode, or do I just want to kind of like back off a little bit? 99% of the time, I'm like, fuck it, let's go. Gas all the way down. Whether that is like in more of an endurance type atmosphere, or if it's more, or it's like a shorter piece. But like when I rode a marathon last summer, and Dan captured that. But yeah, that sucked and it was boring and just staring at a screen. There are people around me, which helped, but I had my headphones in and I was like, just get through this. And especially when training for it, I was like, no one's going to do this for you. So you got to put in the work now. So there were a lot of hours where it's just me with music or a podcast, or like I watched the movie Parasite because that was subtitles. That was great. But a lot of time where it's like just mentally just have to get into that mindset where okay, just one foot in front of the other, one more stroke at a time, one more paddle, whatever it is. So being able to just get through those mental or physical obstacles, not at whatever it takes, but just be able to push through that.
Yeah, and you used the words willing and able earlier in your description, and I think that ties nicely back into what you were saying about effort. Being willing to do something and being able to do something are two different things, but you have to be willing to put yourself through some kind of discomfort, right? Even if you're not able to complete the task or the objective or hit the outcome exactly as maybe you wanted to, as long as you're willing to give the effort and to try and to show up, even when you don't want to or you don't feel like it, I think that's really all that matters. And I think that's a huge component of endurance.
Yeah.
And I'm curious for you in that marathon, by the way, so you finished the marathon injured, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the hardest mile?
Oh, I don't know which one. Maybe it was mile like 22 or 20. So have you run New York? I feel like
I'm doing it this year, actually, for the first
you
time.
are. That was my girlfriend.
Oh, nice.
I'm like,
She's probably faster than I am.
she's so fast. In a sprint, I'd smoke her, but anything over like 2 miles, done. It's mile like I think it's like mile 24 is where you're basically going uphill. It's such a gradual hill, but right before you get into Central Park. So it was right before that, like the top of Central Park, and then a little bit by Harlem. That was bad. It was really, really bad because there was like, I don't know, you're far enough away where you're like, holy shit, am I gonna make this? Then when you get in Central Park, it's kind of like you just got to finish it. So it was at that point where it's like I'm so close, but I still have a couple more miles to go, and everyone's saying you only have a couple more miles, but you're like, well, I just ran 20 of them, and my body is absolutely destroyed. So yeah, it was like mile 22, 23, but it was the hardest, and it was also like not as packed too. That's also really hard. Is like you want to have people like strategically placed where you need them. So
yeah, I was talking to a few different people about the marathon, and a bunch of people said, I think it's mile 16 or 17, somewhere around there, where you go over, I'm not sure which bridge it is, but it's a bridge with no spectators, and all you hear is feet. Yeah. What bridge is that?
The 59th Street. So when you go from Queens to Manhattan, and it's weird because like you're in Brooklyn, it's like music is popping, it's like let's go. You go over the bridge, and it's just it's like ugh. Then you go down, and then you get to Manhattan, and then you go up First Ave, and it's electric. But then it dies off again when you get to Harlem, and then you have to wait till you kind of get back to Central Park. So there's a pretty good gap, like 4 miles or so, where it's like it's really tough because you don't have all that energy around you. So the person I ran it with, I really had to rely on her because during training, I was always the one that would run behind her, and she would lead the pace. And then this time, I was the one who had to lead in front because I was the one that was slow, and I needed that push. So it was really a weird dynamic because during training, I was fine, except for like, so we ran basically up to 20 miles. And then like the next week, I just couldn't run. And then the marathon, it was like, I needed her. Like I don't know if maybe I would have had to dig really, really, really deep to get through it. Not that I didn't have to this time, but it was nice and made it better to have somebody to lean on and to push me. So yeah. New York's a ton of fun. I lived there for 7 years. Went to like one of the marathons. I went last year and watched it, but yeah, you're gonna have an awesome time. It's amazing. The city
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, the one thing that's consistent across everybody I've talked to and their experience is that the energy is unreal, and I can't wait. And I'm especially excited for that bridge when nobody's around, and that other point a little further past the bridge, because I'm reading this book called Win in the Dark. And it's such a great book, but essentially I think it's easier to show up when there are other people watching, when there are other people around, when there are other people pushing you. And just that concept of being more or less alone, but around other people, and having to dig deep after you've already come so far and still have a pretty decent chunk to go in a sick way is really appealing to me. I'm really excited to hurt on that bridge.
Well, I love to hurt. I want that pain cave as big as it can be. Not injured, but one thing, and I have like probably so many videos of this. Sometimes I'll just like put the camera on and I won't ever post it, but it's just like to hold me accountable and be like, you're not slowing down, you're not giving up. Like you said, you're going to do this, whatever it is. Said I'm broken, like you're doing it. So just having like eyes on you, because I typically end up working out alone. So having like eyes on me, and so sometimes it's my camera, but I'll have it up there and then I'll hit record and be like, know that it's recording. May never put it up, but I'm like, screw it. Like I need this extra push.
That's a really, really cool idea. So you and I both played football. I played 1 year in college before I had to stop because of my eyes. Did you play all 4 years?
Yeah.
Okay. So you know what it's like to watch film in college, right? Football film. And for people who aren't a football kind of person, or you've never played or watched film, all of your mistakes are up on the screen for everybody to see. And I don't know about your experience, but for us at Bucknell, it was games, but it was every single practice we would watch before the next practice. And if you were jogging instead of running, or walking instead of jogging, or you weren't in the right place, or you didn't do the right thing, you get called out for it. And when I abruptly had to stop playing football, I missed that, because it made me a better teammate. It made me a better player. It made me a better person. And so I always thought to myself, how could I just live life as if it was on film for other people to see? And I love the idea of putting it on film for yourself and documenting that. I'm going to have to steal that from you.
Yeah. I'll probably end up deleting it a little bit after, a couple days after, but yeah, man, I do not, I don't know. There's a lot of things in football I miss. Getting reamed out, I don't, but I do miss like just being in the room with all the guys and watching film. So
yeah, I got you. Well, all right. As we wind things down here, Cam, I have one more question for you. And this one is really important to me because I know at various points in my life, I've needed someone to speak something encouraging, something truthful into my life. So this question, I want you to think that you're speaking directly to somebody who's listening to us right now. You're in somebody's ears, and this person is potentially going through something really hard. Maybe it's a dark season. Maybe they don't know where to go. They feel lost, stuck, frustrated, down, whatever. What would you say to that person who's going through something really, really hard right now, whether they chose it or not, who just needs a little bit of encouragement?
Oof. Wow.
We're going to leave this. We're going to leave this thoughtful pause in here because it really adds to the dramatic buildup.
I am basically talking to my 15-year-old self.
Mm.
Lean on the people that love you and care for you because they want to. That's something I didn't do. And yeah, the people that want to be there for you and care about you are gonna want you to be on their shoulder, or lend their shoulder to you. So open up to them, talk to them, and yeah, know that they have the best intentions for you.
I love that. I'm going to share one more quick story because I can't help it. So my wife and I got married in the beginning of the pandemic. So our wedding plans, our original plans, got thrown off course big time. So we had a small wedding, just our parents and siblings. The night of our wedding, at the wedding, my wife said her stomach wasn't feeling great. Over the next couple of days on our quote unquote honeymoon, where we just stayed in our apartment, it progressively got worse and worse to the point where she drove herself to the ER on the first day I went back to work, and she had an emergency appendectomy. And when she came home from the hospital after spending a night by herself because of COVID restrictions and all that, I did not care about anything else in the world. I don't even know if I brushed my teeth for like a week. I was just, whatever she needed, I did it. And it made me so happy to be there for her. And I think the point of me saying this is to just piggyback on what you said. It's easy to feel like a burden sometimes when you're not feeling your best. But like you said, the people who truly love you and care about you, they want to be there for you. So lean on them. I think that's so important. All right, Cam. So with that deep story to wrap things up, on a lighter note, if people want to follow along, they want to see what you have to offer in terms of fitness, connection, community, etc., on social media, where should they go to find you?
Instagram, Cameron Ahouse, all one word.
All right. Only positive comments on Cam's post, guys. I know this audience tends to be a bit abrasive, but just kidding.
I'll just block it, whatever.
Yeah, no. Anybody listening to this podcast, 100% is awesome. And you guys should definitely connect with Cam. So Cam, thank you so much for this, man. I appreciate you, everything that you do. And I know this conversation is going to impact a lot of people.
I appreciate it. I had a ton of fun. And I really appreciate those questions too.
Of course, man.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.